على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, we begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity for us to continue in our lesson in the book Kitab Idah by Al-Imam Hassan Shurun Bulali in the Fiqh of Al-Imam Abu Hanifa. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah bless any our lesson and make it the reason where our sins are forgiven and our prayers are answered. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. So in our last lesson we were at the part where the author speaks about the things that does not make bathing obligatory. After he mentioned the things that made bathing obligatory, he mentioned the things that does not make bathing obligatory, because there might be some things that people thought that it was obligatory, but in reality it is not obligatory. So this is in a way to inform us in a better sense of this subject. So basically, before this, we mentioned about what makes bathing obligatory. We spoke about the coming out of sperm, and likewise sexual intercourse, and when a person experience menses and postnatal bleeding after he has been cut off, all these things it is wajib for a person to bathe. But this is a chapter where we are going into where the author mentioned the things that does not make bathing obligatory. So we mentioned a few things. We have reached at point number 5. So let us just go through again the first few pointers, because he mentioned here the things that does not make bathing obligatory. There are 10. This is what he said: Ashratu ashya la yurtasalu minha. 10 things that we do not perform the obligatory bath. Number 1, if a person sees madhi. Madhi is a colorless liquid that's sticky. Usually comes out when a person is tired. This does not make bathing obligatory, because this is not mani. This is not sperm. And wadi, it is a whitish liquid that comes out with urine when a person has in a state of tiredness or having back pain sometimes. So this colorless liquid it comes out with urine. This is not mani. Number 3 is when a person sees in a dream that he is doing sexual intercourse, but there are no traces of sperm, bila balalin. And likewise pertaining to women, as what the author mentioned. Number 4, we spoke about giving birth. Giving birth in the Hanafi madhab, if there is no postnatal bleeding, bathing is not compulsory. And this is the difference between the Shafi and the Hanafi in this regard. But in the Hanafi madhab, they mentioned that is encouraged to bathe, ihtiyatan, as a precaution. Even though a woman does not experience any postnatal bleeding, but the original ruling is that bathing is not compulsory. So today's our lesson, we will begin from here. Point number 5. Number 5, the author mentioned ilajun bi khirqatin mani'atin min wujudil ladhah. If a person wears something on his penis, and he insert the penis into the vagina, insert the penis into the vagina, but this thing that he wears around in his penis is something that prevents any form of ladha, any form of sexual pleasure, meaning there is no feeling of the heat of the internal part of the vagina, and there is no feeling of any sexual we say arousal, no sexual arousal that result from this insertion. Here he is speaking about a type of barrier that is placed around the penis to a sense that the person who wears this thing doesn't feel anything when it is inserted into the woman's private part. So in this regard, bathing is not compulsory. Bathing is not compulsory because although there is any insertion of the penis, but it is something that is not felt. It is something that is not felt due to the presence of this barrier. Type. One might ask, what about the condoms that are used today? Condoms are not like this. Condoms are designed that a person feels the sexual pleasure, feels the heat, and all these things. So it makes any obligatory bath any obligatory any upon the person. Here the author is speaking any about a certain any material that prevents any form any of sexual any arousal or feelings when it is inserted any into the private part. So this is any point any number 5. But of course any based on precaution ihtiyat, it is better you need to perform the obligatory bath. Number 6, any hukna. Hukna that is meant here, and this is a traditional way of removing our bowels any from the anus, that something any is placed any in the anus, and then after that any it is washed out. So this does not make any bathing any obligatory, although there is an insertion in the anus, but it does not any make bathing obligatory, because a person is not in the state any of hadas unless any if what you call it a penis any is inserted, a private part any of the male any is inserted. Otherwise any it does not makes bathing any obligatory by removing any the bowels any from a person. Number 7, idkhalu isba', and if a person puts any his finger and make it enter into his anus or woman and into the vagina, this does not make bathing obligatory. Now, so by inserting any finger does not make bathing obligatory, even though any there is any arousal. Wa nahwihi fi ahadis sabilain. So whether we are speaking about finger or other than finger, as long as it is not any private part, which is the penis, then it does not any make any bathing any obligatory. But here we have to understand the author and is just any mentioning any about the ruling of this insertion, whether it makes bathing go obligatory or not obligatory. But when comes any to the action, whether it is haram any or not haram any, it depends. And if a person any does it and with sexual any arousal any by using any his hand and all these things, this is not permissible, but it does not any make any bathing obligatory. Number 8, wa wat'u bahimatin, and if a person has sexual intercourse with an animal, bahima, does this sexual any intercourse makes any bathing any obligatory? The answer any is no. The answer any is no. In the Hanafi madhab, it does not make bathing obligatory. Why? Because they say ash-shahwatu fihi qasira. The sexual and arousal and it is not the same and is to be done with a human being, because this is unnatural. This is an unnatural any form any of sexual any intercourse. So it does not any make bathing obligatory, even though there is an insertion. Number 9, aw maitatin. Likewise, and if a person performs sexual intercourse with a dead person, with the deceased, min ghairi inzal, where there is no ejaculation any of the sperm, it does not make bathing obligatory. Again, here we are speaking any about the issue of bathing. We are not speaking any about the issue whether this action is halal or haram. Of course, it's haram. But here any the author any is specifically mentioning this in the chapter any of bathing to inform us that this kind of action, although it is haram, but it does not make bathing obligatory unless and if there is ejaculation. If there is ejaculation, it is compulsory upon him any to bathe because any of khurujul mani, not any because any of the sexual any intercourse. Number 10, wa isabatu bikrin lam tazul bakaratuha min ghairi inzal. If a person has sexual intercourse any with a virgin and the virginity is not gone, the virginity any is still present, then bathing is not obligatory. Because why? Normally, if the head any of the penis is inserted into the vagina, automatically the virginity will break. Automatically the virginity any will break. But now any is a situation the virginity any does not break. It shows any that the insertion any is a minor insertion. So it does not any come any to a state any of sexual any intercourse. That is why bathing the obligatory bath any is not any compulsory unless if a person ejaculates. If a person any ejaculates, then bathing any becomes compulsory. So this is the 10 things any that these are the 10 things that the author any mentioned. Fi ma la yujibul ightisal. The things any does not make bathing obligatory. Then after that any the author any mentioned fi fara'idil ghusli. Now he going into to speak any about the integrals, the things that are wajib for when we are performing the ghusl. So he mentioned yuftaradu fil irtisali 11 shay'a. So altogether there are 11 things any that is fard, that is obligatory upon any Muslim when he's performing the obligatory bath, that he must make sure all these things any are present. Number 1, Raslul Fam. It is compulsory upon a person when he is performing the obligatory bath, he must take into consideration the internal part of the mouth. So it is wajib. Likewise, Al-Anf, the internal part of the ears. Wal Badan, the whole body, the outward layer of the body. And what is compulsory is maratan, even though it is only once. So if a person wash the whole body, including the mouth and the nose, even for one time, that suffice. That we say he has performed the minimal obligation. Number 4, wadakhili qulfa. Qulfa is the skin of a person who does not circumcise. It is compulsory to make sure that water reaches the internal part of that skin, because that is considered to be the outer part of the body. La usra fi fasqiha, meaning there is no difficulty in opening it, in making sure that the water comes and reach those parts, unless if it is what you call it closed for example, and cannot be opened. That is a different situation. Number 5 was suratin, the navel. It is compulsory that when we bathe, we make sure that the water reaches the navel, because there is a possibility that water might not reach because it is a hole that is in the center of the body. And then number 6 that he mentioned was suqbin ghairi mundam, and all holes that is present in our body that is not covered, meaning water can reach those places. Then it is compulsory upon us to make sure that water reaches those parts. So certain what you call it parts of our body, there are certain holes. So we have to wash the outer layer. Number 7, wadakhilil madfur min sha'ri rajuli mutlaqan. If a man he has this what you call it like the tying of the hair and make it into the beads. If a man is doing it, it is compulsory upon him to open it, so that he makes sure that water reaches the hairs. Water reaches the hairs. But not if it is a woman, because normally any woman has long hair, so the ruling for woman is lesser than men. Men it is not what you call it recommended for them to keep long hair, and it is not something that is usual for men to have long hair. So if men have tie the hair into beads, then it is compulsory upon them to open it and make sure that water reaches the hairs. But for women, it is permissible for them to wear to tie their hair, and it is not compulsory upon them to open it if water can reach in between the hairs and likewise at the scalp area. This is the meaning of usulihi. Number 8, wa basharatil lihyati walau kasifatan. When a person has a beard, we have to make sure that water reaches the skin underneath, even though if the beard is thick. So in bathing, we do not differentiate between thick and thin, not like in wudu. But in bathing, it is compulsory for us to make sure that water reaches the skin, no matter how thick and how thin the hairs of the mustache or the beard. Number 9, wa basharati sharib, likewise the mustache. It is compulsory that we make sure that water reaches the bashara. Bashara is the skin underneath, while hajib, hajib is this part of the upper eyes, while farajil kharij, and the vagina of a woman, and the outer part of the vagina. What is the meaning? Meaning, if a woman is standing up, certain parts of the vagina is overlapped. So what she has to do is she has to stretch out a bit in a way that the outer part of the vagina is accessible to water, because these are the parts that is compulsory upon her to wash. Then only the bathing becomes compulsory. Likewise for men, especially for men who are obese, then it requires certain level of effort to make sure that the water reaches the overlapping parts of the body, because at the end of the day, what is compulsory is that we make sure that water reaches all parts of the body. Then the author speaks about the sunnahs yani in bathing. Maybe yani we cover yani a bit and before yani we stop. So he mentioned faslun fi sunanil ghusli. So after yani he spoke yani about the obligations yani in bathing, he began yani to speak yani about the sunnahs. ويسن في الاغتسال 12 شيئا. So there are 12 things yani that is sunnah, yani to be performed yani in bathing. Number 1, al-ibtida'u bitasmiyah. Yani a person, sunnah for him before yani he perform any the bath, he recite yani the basmala. So he recite yani this basmala before yani he open any his clothes. Because why? It is not any sunnah to recite zikrullah in a state of nakedness. Now, this is mentioned any by the author in so many of his books. Number 2, an-niyyah. So here we have to need to pay attention. In the Hanafi madhab, intention is not obligatory in bathing. In the madhab al-Imam Shafi'i, intention and is the first obligation. But in the Hanafi madhab, just like wudu, we mentioned that niyyah is not compulsory, but it is a sunnah. It is any recommended. And the difference any between a person who makes intention and a person who does not make intention, a person who does not make intention will not get the rewards of the bathing. Because rewards only comes with intention. Innamal a'malu bin niyat. But if a person makes the intention for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to lift this major ritual impurity, Raful Hadasil Akbar, Lillahi ta'ala, make this intention of bathing and removing this major impurity for himself, he will get rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there is difference between a person who makes the intention and the person who does not make the intention. Number 3, Rasulul Yadaini ila Rusrain. To wash the hands all the way until the wrists. Before he begins to perform the bathing. Number 4, Ruslun Najasa. He makes sure that he wash away all kinds of filth. So that when he bathe, the filth does not spread to his body. So if there is any filth on my hand, it is a sunnah for me to remove the filth first. Otherwise, if I wash, the filth will spread to other body parts. Ghuslu najasatin walau kanat ala badanihi bin firadiha. Even if what you call it, there is it is at a particular spot in the body. So it is a sunnah for us to what you call it, to do the washing. Wa ghuslu farjihi in lam takun bihi najasa. So the first thing the author began by saying that it is a sunnah to begin with the private parts. If there is no najis, and if there is najis, it is compulsory that he remove the filth. If there is he have washed his private parts, he makes the intention of bathing. So he began by washing any of the private parts, then only wudu. And the reason why it is a sunnah for us to wash the private parts before wudu, so that our wudu will not be invalidated if we touch our private parts based on opinions of other scholars. So this is a better way that we wash our private parts before we perform our wudu. So he said, Ghuslu farjihi in lam takun bihi najasa, summa yatawadda'u ka wudu'ihi lis-salah. After washing any of the private parts, then only he takes ablution. فَيُسَلِّسُ الْغُسْلَ وَيَمْسَحُ رَأْسَهُ. So he bathe 3 times, what you call it, in the bathing, and likewise he washes his head. So inshallah ta'ala, because of time, we will stop here. Inshallah, next week we will continue from here. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.